Okay, we're going to take a look at finding the midpoint of a segment with given the endpoints. That's all we're going to have is the endpoints. We'll find the midpoint. Let's start off by just doing some just looking at some intuitive steps. If I gave you, if I told you that you made an 80 on a test, and the next test you made a 100 on, and I said, what's the average that you're going to receive for those two tests, you would know that that's going to be a 90, right? And you would know that because halfway between 80 and 100 is 90. Now, we get that, obviously, by adding the two. The average of two things is adding the two entries and dividing by 2. Okay, and that's going to give us the 90. So let's take that same idea and let's look at finding the midpoint of a segment if we have the endpoints. All right, so first thing I want to do is I want to make a quick little coordinate plane. And I'm going to go ahead and put these 2 points on. I'm going to go over 2, -5. There's one of the points. And I'm going to go over 6 and up 7. Now, this is a segment, and I need to find the midpoint. Now, you can see how difficult that would be by just looking and eyeballing. Where is the midpoint? And then, well, once we find it, what looks like halfway, what in the world would be the coordinates? That would be really difficult from the picture. So we're going to need to use this idea to help ourselves with a little, a little bit of algebraic approach. So here we go. If I want, I need a midpoint that has both an x and a y coordinate, obviously. Well, let's do this. Let's take a look at the x coordinates just by themselves. And let's average, if I want the halfway point or the midpoint, then I can take the 2 points here, 2 and 6, the x coordinates of these 2 endpoints, and I could average them. That would give me the midpoint, right? It would give me halfway between. So we're going to go 2 plus 6 divided by 2. There's the average of those x coordinates. Now let's take the y coordinates, right? We need a y coordinate for our midpoint, so let's take the -5 and add it to the 7. And that's what we said, right? That we add the 2 things and divide by 2. That gives us the midpoint. All right, so let's take a look at what we get here. We have 8 over 2, and we have 2 over 2. So we see that that gives us a midpoint of 4, 1. Now let's go back over here to our picture and let's just see if that looks reasonable, right? Let's see if because it's going to have to look fairly close to what we think would be the appropriate midpoint. Now, if I go over 4 and up 1, look at there. That looks really pretty good, right? That looks exactly like it would be the proper midpoint. So I'm pretty confident that that's correct. All right, so let's use that same, just a second here. All right, my pen almost stopped working. Let's use that same idea, and this time we're not going to be able to double check it with the picture because I have some irrational numbers here, and I guess I could estimate these, but I'd rather just let the algebra do this work for me. So here we go. I'm going to take the 2 x coordinates, add them together. You're saying, but Miss Savelle, these are fractions. You're right, and we're going to work with them and not be afraid of them. So now we're going to take the y coordinates, add them together, and divide by 2. So this is going to be our I'll call this the midpoint like that. All right, so first thing, I have a pi over 4 and a pi over 6. Again, I do not want to pull out my calculator and make that 3.14. That's not giving the exact answer. That's an approximation. So I do want to add the 2 fractions, though. And now I can't add them, of course, with a 4 and a 6 on the denominators. I need to get a common denominator, and I'm looking at those 2, and I'm thinking this could become a 12. So I'll make that bottom a 12, and then, of course, have to multiply by the top as well. And then I'll make this one a 12 by multiplying by 2. So here we go. We have 3 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. All right, so let's bring that back over. We have 3 pi over 12 plus 2 pi over 12. Now, that's still over 2, right? Now, are y'all okay? You're probably okay with me just going ahead and making that just a 1/2, right? 0 plus 1 is 1 over 2. Now, this left side, the x-coordinate still needs a little more work, so we realize that this is going to be a 5 pi over 12. Now, here's what we have. We have 5 pi over 12 divided by 2. We have a complex fraction. I don't want to leave that like that. In fact, I can't leave that like that. So let's do this. 5 pi over 12. Let's just look at it in a different way. I'm going to write it out this way, divided by 2. So 5 pi over 12. That's the same as divided by 2 over 1, right? And we know how to divide fractions, right? You know how to divide fractions. We multiply by the reciprocal. All right, so if I multiply by the reciprocal, then that's going to give me 5 pi over 24, and that is me simplifying this. So this gets replaced with 5 pi over 24, and then the y-coordinate is 1/2, and that, folks, is my midpoint of those two points there, and that's the exact midpoint. Okay? Hope this helped. Thanks for watching.